Hey everybody, welcome to Heal Squad with Maria Menounos, and well, much perhaps to your dismay, it's not Maria Menounos, it's Mr. Maria Menounos. And I'm sitting here about to bring you part 2 of our interview with Kyland Young from Big Brother and the Challenge. I know in our first episode we discussed at length autism and ADHD and what Kyland here has done to overcome that. Today we're going to focus more on the life of a reality TV star, specifically life on Big Brother and the Challenge, along with just a few other things. So with that, it's February, people, and we are officially in the month of love. And with Maria being away right now and Valentine's Day coming up, I'm curious, Kai, segueing into relationships. Not that we need to discuss dating on the spectrum, but I saw on the Challenge you had a moment with someone you were, I'm going to just say cohabitating with, or at least with cuddling with, or whatever you all doing. I know it's edited for television. And you just had a moment where you blurted out. She asked you something, and your response was, I'm on the spectrum.
Yeah, so that was, there's one of the other contenders, Melissa, and we met on the show, and we were out at the club. We have club nights like after some of the challenges, and for, this is early on the show, and like I said, I can
By the way, is it those first few weeks everyone's settling in, and is it like, I'm envisioning it's almost like freshman year in college, everyone shows up, and is everyone starting to eye up who they want to maybe like or be with? Is it? It is, but it's faster than that. Because I don't know if it's the type of personalities that are attracted to this type of show, but I feel like it's a very high emotion, high energy environment. A lot of adrenaline is pumping all the time. Everyone is in literal competition with each other. And I feel like it's gotten so advanced that 15, 20 years ago, it was so raw that people were like, oh, I'm going to hook up with this person. And I feel like now people are focused on winning. Do you agree, Rox?
Yeah, honestly.
They're much more, right?
Oh, yeah.
Completely. People make this a full-time job. They work out every single day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day, off season too, preparing for the challenge.
So Melissa.
Oh, yeah.
you worked out for Melissa.
No, so we ended up on stage. There was like a stage at the club, the bar we were at, and everyone was like chanting for us to kiss, and it was definitely a moment where I was overstimulated because we're really early in the show, so I'm taking in all of the other castmates. I'm taking in the location. We're in Croatia. I've never been there. We've never been in this bar before. I'm taking in a lot of information, and I had maxed out my capacity for new experiences, because that is, I found myself fairly regulated in planning. Like if my friend, something that is hard for people to see, for people on the spectrum, is they'll talk about having meltdowns or being overwhelmed. And it could be as simple as I remember my friends came over, we were like, oh, we're gonna go to the movies. We're gonna go to the movies. And I was like, cool. And then they all came over and actually we all talked and we decided we want to do this. And I was like, I need to go downstairs by myself for 15 minutes. Otherwise I'm going to panic, because this is different than what we talked about. So I mentally prepare myself to be out in simulation. And at the bar, I was mentally prepared for being there and taking in everything. And then when everybody chanted kiss and she wanted to kiss, and I was like, I can't do that because that is too much for me to process right now. And I didn't think anything of it. And this is another learning lesson. If that happened to me, it wouldn't cross my mind to be embarrassed. She felt very embarrassed and disrespected and upset. And so when we were talking, and I was like, none of that, I feel overwhelmed, and I would not ever take it that way as being embarrassed, because it's just why would anybody have to do something that they don't want to do in front of people? And then she's just like, well, I feel like it makes sense to everybody else. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not like everyone else. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, because I'm on the spectrum. The autism diagnosis.
Actually, but what you said kind of made sense.
But yeah. Well, because I explain it like that,
okay,
but that's
copy.
not, that is, I have, enough context to give it. But she, I didn't realize we hadn't talked about it, because we'd already been talking and hanging out, and, being on the spectrum, being autistic is part of my identity, but I have a lot of my identity. And so I don't tend to shake hands with people and say like, hi, I'm Kyland.
Yeah, of course. Why would you?
Yeah.
And so how was she with the, once it...
She was incredibly receptive. It was actually really cool. I think she had a family member that she mentioned, or a family friend. So she's like, oh, like, okay, I know that it can be different. And so it was one of those things where at first she was just talking to her other friends in the house. So they were just reaffirming her experience. They were just like, yeah, that was super messed up. Yeah, that was really weird, or yeah, whatever. You should be upset, all these things. I can't believe you would do that. And then, so then when I talked to her, I was like, hey, by the way, this is why that was a weird situation I wasn't ready for. And I hadn't even noticed that we hadn't talked about it. So that's an interesting balancing act in itself.
But she got it?
Yeah, she got it, and we talked, and everything was fine. But it's like dating anybody or interacting with new people. It's like, when do you bring that up? Like, hey, like I might do something, that is interpreted different, and it's not because I don't like you. And my brain operates efficiently. Efficiency in communication is usually not very polite or sensitive.
Right. And does it matter? Would you want to date someone on the spectrum? Would you need to, or is that more troublesome?
I've definitely thought about that. I actually, I was talking to someone else in the spectrum, and there is like certain, that they might not be as sensitive to certain things.
So it's just different.
So it's definitely a thought I've had where I'm like, oh, like not like I want to actively seek it, but like, oh, it is there. I mean, it's like any parts of your identity. If you're, I'm half black, I'm half Mexican, and I've dated so many different races, and there usually can be there can be a shared understanding for someone. I've dated people of different, economic.
Yeah, so I guess it doesn't matter.
It's like, yeah, right? It does, and like, but there is a relatability and less that you have to explain. So it's like, yeah, same thing. If you date a minority and you're a minority, there's less that you have to explain.
So I have a solution for all of us here, for Nikkei, for Roxy, for Dwayne in the booth. I'm just going to throw it out there, eHarmony. If you haven't been successful in meeting your person, someone in person, and you're ready to discover your life companion, look no further than eHarmony. Heal Squad. eHarmony simplifies the process of finding a deep and meaningful connection through their compatibility quiz. That's right. I love this thing. This quiz delves into your unique personality, interests, and values, guaranteeing that you'll be matched with someone who genuinely understands and appreciates you. I, of course, have found my perfect match in Miss Maria Menounos, but I want the same for you. So go take that leap. Go to eHarmony.com, take their compatibility quiz. And by the way, but let us know how you do. So Roxy, I'm going to just throw it over to you about this. I remember they're one of our sponsors, but I love this idea that there's a quiz to be much more mindful in connecting with, your potential significant other. Because normally I'm from a generation where, oh, she's hot. That's it. Let's get married. Or mom and dad like her. Let's get married. Like that was it. Or, let's try to get married.
It doesn't work like that anymore.
No, it didn't work then.
Well, I think it worked out for you, but
well, yeah. By the way, with Maria, it was so much beaten out of me that I could finally see clearly past all of that stuff, and I could just see a really good best friend.
A quiz would have helped you cut
yes. Well, if I had been more mindful, like the way Kai is mindful about the things he does, if I were more mindful to say, who am I compatible with? Who should I be with? I find this fascinating that there's one of these quizzes.
Yeah, me too, honestly, because how else are you supposed to figure it out with all the noise right now? It's really
even
difficult.
Worse, right? Yeah, with the swipe left, swipe
difficult.
right culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. eHarmony.com.
Probably helps you find somebody who's looking for the same thing as you. I feel like that's where people misalign, is like they look for different things.
You're right. So anyone who's there is in it for the right reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rather than when you're just doing the random swipe left, swipe right, are they there for money, sex? But yeah, I think with eHarmony, very good. back to challenge and Big Brother talk and all that stuff. And I know, Rox, what do? Do we stay on Big Brother? Do you have any more? Rox, come on. Like, I knew you've been doing this forever, so you ask your Big Brother questions.
I know. Well, I mostly was curious how you felt about how everything in hindsight, but it sounds like you did everything you could at the time, and now everybody. I am shocked to hear that all 6 of you are on a text thread. I had no idea you guys were friends.
Oh, more than that, we're the only season, including the 2 seasons after us, where all of our cast is on a text thread together. There's not a single other season that has everybody in a text thread that they still communicate on. Fairly decently. Like, it might be a joke, it might be whatever, but like somebody says something and there's no other season that has all of their cast still on. And I do think that the Cookout probably is a reason for that, because I feel like it added a level of perspective that, like, oh yeah, there are bigger things than this. So any sort of bad blood or backstabbing or whatever that we had, we can look past. I think that we did make it easier to look past it, because even our inherent strategy of our Cookout was each of us had somebody outside of the alliance who was our best friend, and those were our best friends. Those were the people that we cared about more than we cared about most of the people in the Cookout, except we just cared about the mission above our own feelings. So I feel like when the show ended, normally that sort of betrayal, people are like, oh, well, I don't need to talk to this person anymore because they hurt me. Rather, when our
lot
scenario,
of money's on the line.
Yeah.
It's not just like a betrayal, like, oh, my friend hurt me.
Oh.
It's a lot of money on the line.
And that's the interesting thing, too, is even just saying the word betrayal of my friend. It's like, outside of, infidelity, like in relationships, how many people encounter betrayal in real life? Like, it's not a common experience, because it is because most people aren't competing in that directly. And so I remember one of my favorite conversations was with my friend Derek, and he said, he's like, I just feel like everyone's out to get me. And I was like, well, because they are. Like, I was like, literally, that is actively why we're here.
Yeah, I love it, because your brain works.
Yeah,
You're so
like,
direct.
yeah, of course. And
Almost,
but it's
okay,
weird.
I'm going to bring it over to Star Trek. He's very Mr. Spock. That's what
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Spock
know.
would say.
Yeah.
He's
Spock
like,
is an autism hero. Like, in the community, as I've like learned about it, that everyone's like, yeah, Spock is that guy.
Have you been watching since you were on the show?
Yes, but like very inconsistently. Like, I watch enough. I probably the last 2 seasons probably saw like 50% of the actual footage, but like you're in the conversation still from social media. You're we're talking to each other about it, so we follow enough of it. And so I mean, definitely, but realistically, I probably, instead of watching every single episode, I definitely skip some. And because even then, it's like you realize from being in it, like how much is missed, and because it's 24/7. Like, that's the difference between that game and any other game, is there's no breaks.
what did we miss from your season that we didn't see as fans?
I mean, from our season, it would have been. It's a couple of years ago now, so I feel like I don't remember I remember more of the stuff for me as an individual, like, and some of it I think is, it may be related to me, like, operating differently than other people, and I think about how I would, I'm trying to think of stuff.
Because it makes sense if you're running cameras 24/7 and then you're
Oh.
editing down to a matter of hours. So many storylines and things and moments must have been missed.
Yes, exactly. There are so many things missed, and then even on the live feeds, because the live feeds only show 2 rooms at a time. So, and there's 5 rooms in the house, so like they may miss certain conversations. And what would be funny though is you're talking to you're on Twitter, you're on social media, and people are like, oh well, you couldn't be friends with this person because what about when you said this? Like, that wasn't true. And it's just like, yeah, I lied, and like the lying game. Yeah, that was lying because I was lying. Like, what do you mean? Like, of course it wasn't true. And so they're like, you contradicted. It's like, yeah, that's part of it, is you are contradicting. You're telling one person something and someone else something else. That's the nature of the game. And you're open to both of those options being what you then move forward with based on how the game plays out. So it's like, it's such a what people miss is the nuance of the game, because it's not chess. It is chess mixed with like poker. In poker, it's like sometimes you're bluffing, sometimes you're making people will say like, why did you make the decision? Going back to, like I said, observing things. Humans are very good at rationalizing, especially in these games. It cracks me up because most people I think do it in most situations. We make the decisions emotionally, and then we justify it with reason afterwards. So like you'll hear somebody's explanation of something. It's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense, but I don't think that was true. It's like, because it wasn't. They made that decision because of how they felt, and then they rationalize it after. And that is such a big part of the game that people are like, it's just such a nuanced game to where.
All right, so specifically, what did we miss?
I know, man. I'm like, specifically.
If you're the EP of the show. Because I hear this all the time from all the reality shows, Rocks, is they say, they left out this, they should have put in that.
Well, I think they do run the cameras 24/7 for all of us to see. So it is one of the only shows where you're not missing as much, because at any time of day I can log on and see what is going on there. Because of that, though, we do see every season there is some person on the show, Kev, who they didn't used to eliminate them, but now they do, says something unbelievably sexist, racist, homophobic. They used to just keep them in the house. Now they seem to have a zero tolerance.
It just stinks because those people are such good television.
No, that's
we need our bad guys, people. We get rid of all the villains. What do we got?
I'm curious how you feel about the fact that they're now immediately, if you say something that people don't like.
Well, we only had the one example, the Luke, from this most recent season, and that was interesting in itself, because it's like now we have to. Not that I disagree with the decision, but now we have to decide like what is, there's a lot of like, how do we judge words now? What's the words that we're gonna make that are, disqualifiable or not or whatever? And I think that will be interesting to see how they handle future seasons.
Was Luke on this season?
Yeah, so Luke was on the most recent season.
And
He's a white player who said the N-word.
Oh.
And they pulled him out of the house. I mean, they were not messing around.
Yeah, pretty quickly, and it was,
how do you feel about that? Good or bad?
I mean, I feel like it was good in the sense of, I don't know. I also have the benefit of like afterwards, people kind of approached him about it, and he had like no accountability around it. Like I think he posted a joke about it at first to try to belittle it, and then every interview he's like, it was very casually said, like it's part of his language, and he was very much talking about like, oh, well, you're just high stress and you're not sleeping, you're not eating, and it's all these things. It's like, yeah, but like that isn't a recipe that leads to casual use like that. And it wasn't a hateful statement. It was a very like non-hateful way that he said it. But I feel like, so I have a little bit less grace around the lack of understanding of it. But then there's, it's like what words are we there's a controversy later on because people are like, someone else said the R word, which I didn't even know was like now referred to as like the R word, and so it's just like
what qualifies,
what qualifies, and that's going to be an interesting conversation. And then also who says what, because it's just like it'll be interesting to see. It's a complicated topic that I have a lot of thoughts on, and that's why I feel like it could take over a conversation. But as far as I think that what that does bring me to, though, that I feel very passionately about, is the way that the public judges people in this situation. It's like how you'll commonly see someone say like, oh, well, now we see somebody's true colors. And it's like, if you look at a lot of basic psychology research, if you put people in high stress, difficult situations, you get the opposite of their normal responses. You do not get a normal response from people. You get the adrenaline hype, the stress hype, the sleep deprived hype. Like, that's not how people operate. And sometimes people look at it and they're like, oh, this is how they truly are. It's like, no, that's actually the opposite, is what all psychology tends to lean towards. So now, and then let's take out the extremes and just look at I think Warren Buffett says if the cop follows, a car for 100 miles, he's going to find a reason to write them a ticket. And that's kind of like, you're in this environment where you're living there, you're navigating so many different situations, and right now, we have a little bit of we have accountability that I'm super thankful for, but then we also have a little bit of an overcorrection in terms of like, people like to sit on a high horse and judge other people for saying something that's just like it feels to me at times that we are, I don't know if it's the right word, de-incentivizing growth, because we're like, hey, what about what you said 10 years ago or whatever? It's just because they'll pull up the tweets from people like from us in the cast about like the tweets and stuff, like, what about when you said when you were, it's like, yeah, when I was 14, like I'm not saying that's not a problem, I'm not saying we don't apologize for it, but like the question I tend to ask people when they attack somebody is like, well, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to learn? Do you want them to be better? Because if that's what they're doing, then
I think they want to.
Or do you just want to be upset? You want to punish somebody,
and thrash and destroy?
Because it gives them a sense of power, and I think that's like an interesting thing that everyone in the Big Brother experiences, because you will have and you also see the differences of opinions, because you'll say something and you have people. You'll have the same situation, and you have some people be upset for like somebody. They're like, "Oh, I'm so glad that they didn't say something," and then there'll be like other people, "Oh, I'm so upset that they didn't say something," or vice versa. And it's just like, you're not going to please everyone, and it's just like, and it's like no one's been in that situation. Very few people have been in that situation of having all of their words observed and then lacking context. And you'll see someone will say something, and it's just like, I can't believe they said that. It's like, well, you didn't see that they were giving them dirty looks earlier or something like that. And so that's what I was saying, like, the stuff that you can't see is those quick interactions of that people make a lot of decisions on that they're really hard that you can't even articulate. It's like, oh, well, this happened here, and here that led to this. And it's, I feel like I'm not being as clear because my brain's thinking about
I feel like you're very, it
Yeah,
seems very clear to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's the same reaction from the audience to Big Brother as it is to the challenge? Like when they're watching you on the challenge, is it as judgy of a group?
It's definitely different, and I feel like, first off, they're very different audiences.
Tell me what's the difference.
I mean, Big Brother is it's kind of a nerdy show. It's and I love it. It is very middle America. They'll people always ask about like, oh, do they feed you lines or anything like that? These games are not fake. They are, and our expressions that you tend to see in them are very real. The only thing that Big Brother helps you do a little bit, because I think a lot of their audience is middle America, and maybe, or just a little bit of a family-friendly, hokey audience, is
That's me, Kev.
They'll help you make a sentence more like, not just concise, but also more like hokey. So it might just be like, they had a game set up. For an example, they'll have a game set up where there's a bunch of like lollipops, kind of like Candyland or something, and you walk out and you're like, this was just not a very fun challenge for me, or competition for me. And they'll be like, you might want to say like, it sucked, and you're like, yeah, it sucked, or something, or I'm a sucker, or something like that.
And that's just better. It's better TV, but
just something like that.
It's still the truth. It's just it's just the truth told in a better way for television.
And and the audience for the Big Brother, eats it up, and the audience for challenge. That's the other thing too, is once again, you can't please everybody. You have so many people that are, there for the competition, and then you have so many people that are there for the drama, and both of them are at odds, usually asking like, this one sucks because they don't have more competition. This one sucks because they don't have enough drama.
But for the drama people, are they trying to stay on the show as long as they can as well?
Well, I'm talking more audience. So I'm saying the audience, people who are watching the show who love the drama, and people who are watching the show who love the competitions. And it's funny because I'm definitely someone, who likes the competitions aspect of it. And it's funny because I guess I found myself in drama, which I don't feel like I'm a dramatic person. And that's the other thing, is that going back to things not being fake, like these people aren't dramatic because they're on reality TV. They're on reality TV because they're dramatic. Like, I'm around these people when there's no cameras, no phones, and this is how they act. And
Okay, here's the question, and I'm sure Roxy has many as well, but what is give me some generic differences between the cast of Big Brother and then the cast of Challenge.
Big Brother has archetypes. I feel like you might have seen, like, maybe, and this is generally speaking, we're talking 14 to 16 people for the past 25 seasons. So it's just like, was it like 200? Well, it's like 300 and something people because they've changed the number of players at different seasons. But there's probably, like, I don't know, 30 archetypes, and any season might have, kind of the more country person, the more, girl next door vibe, and then, like, a scientist vibe or whatever. And like, they're not black and white, like, super strict archetypes, but well, that's the thing, is that I think I don't even know where I would classify myself as, because in our season 2 was the first time it was as diverse as it was, because they started our year doing a 50% diverse cast. So they wanted to make sure that they had 50% of the cast was diverse. So, which already brought so much, in my opinion, so many, a lot of positive things to the game, and we've seen that in the last 2 seasons. We just had the most recent one. They just had their first Sikh Punjabi winner, or first Sikh player in Big Brother, and he won. We had
hanging out with him the other day.
Yeah,
too.
Jag. Yeah, he's a great. Yeah, he's a really cool guy. And then we had the first black woman winner in Taylor Hale the year before, and then our year Xavier, first black player winner. And so I think that there's different conversations happening. There's different, but as far so I.
And then what would you say for the challenge? So if we have the
challenge is either the challenge brings together a lot of alpha male jocks, and which I don't think most people would classify me as, and what else would it be like?
And what would you say for the females?
For
Are they
female,
alpha female?
Both. They have very, either tomboyish. They have some tomboyish, athletes, and then they have very. I don't even know what to call, because I don't watch a lot of other reality TV shows besides these two, basically. And it's like, I don't know if you have a term for the kind of catty, and catty guys too, to be fair, like catty, but they having people who are who have short fuses. They love a good short fuse, because that keeps things spicy, and that's been interesting as the game has evolved, where people are watching and they're like, you know what, having a short fuse tends to be bad. So then you have all these people coming on the show who are now holding back. They're a little bit more reserved, which is making the audience unhappy. But then the audience is like, well, like, you guys want to be entertained, we want to win. So for certain, it's an interesting.
Well, you know what they used to do?
Contention.
The idea used to be keep them in that room long enough and apply so much alcohol on them. No, really, and it really was unsafe, because it was very unsafe, because it got violent.
Yeah.
Because then after a while you can't hold your guard up.
Oh yeah,
the mask falls off.
And that's the other thing, is they've changed the alcohol consumption. Now it's like a 2-drink usually limit, and like, except for occasional nights, they might let them drink. And it's crazy, because I don't really drink. So that was an interesting experience, which I've already had a lot. I've been for years. I tried to not operate in extreme. So for about the past 5 years, probably, I drink for a week or weekend while I travel, and then I don't drink for 4 to 8 months. And I've been doing that for the past 5 years. And so
it seems on the challenge is so much cleaner. People really.
Well, I think that's me and Horacio were the only people that didn't drink.
Oh.
So
okay.
everyone else drank, and
Who
they
else?
drank, and they were me and Horacio.
Oh, Horacio, yeah, he's a super athlete.
Yeah, but it's funny, because I think that environment makes people want to drink, the people who do drink. So they were fiending. They were like, begging to take mine and Horacio's drink ticket. Like, we would give them because we're not using them, but like then we would get in trouble for that. So, but they are just, but just the way they're pleading, and that's the weird part about being in any of these sort of shows is that's hard for people to understand is like as an adult you're not used to being supervised and controlled. And so that's a very unique experience mentally to where somebody is controlling, your your eating schedule, your how much you can drink or not drink. And as an adult, that probably messes with you a little bit as far as like someone else being in control of your life for such an extended period of time. The benefit that I feel like that I think that's why Big Brother players have probably been doing well. I think 3 of the last the 3 seasons before us, 2 of the last 3 have been Big Brother people have been on the winning have been winning. It's because like we're
winning in the challenge.
Winning in the challenge, yeah. So with Casey and Amber, or Amber and then Casey, it is you could see people getting restless by like week 5 or whatever, and I'm like, well, we were in Big Brother for 3 months, like, and truly locked away.
They could go the distance.
Like you are not. That's the thing about Big Brother. The isolation is more than you can imagine because they show us in the backyard all the time, but the backyard is closed most days because that's where they build all the competitions. So you only get sunlight 2 days a week. The rest of it, there's no windows. You're not going outside. You're just stuck in the house. And it's no phone, no. It's not just no phone, no TV, no internet. It's no music,
and no
pen
sunlight.
and paper, no books, no sunlight. On top of that, no other faces. You don't see another face. Like, you don't see production. When you're on these other shows, even Survivor, you can go for a walk, you can hang out, like, you can build a fire, you can distract yourself. In Big Brother, there's no distractions. You're just trapped in the house thinking and talking. That's all.
I think that's part of why, going back to when you said that people say you see your true colors, and maybe it's not necessarily that way. So the season after you with Taylor is one of the most interesting seasons ever. To me, she's the queen of all queens. Taylor won. She was unbelievable, but she was targeted from day one. Everybody hated her for seemingly no reason. It was really a truly strange, when you talk about catty women or people, it seemed like a very catty situation. She was a pageant queen and just the most beautiful girl you've ever seen in your life. And I wanted to know, when you were watching that, what did you think about what was going on? Because you had just come out of the house, obviously. You are watching from a different perspective of why everybody was treating her that way.
Yeah, it was... It's funny, I find myself even hesitant now because I could see, and this goes back to I think just how I think, I was like, I see how that happened. The environment in the house is that you're trying to find reasons to protect your own sanity to villainize other people. You want to figure out, why am I not going to feel bad when I take away this person's dream of winning this game and winning this money for them and their families? Because that's what you're doing. And what's crazy about that environment is that it's hard to do that because you also are so isolated that these bonds... Big Brother has more lasting marriages that have come from it than the entire Bachelor and Bachelorette franchise. And that's because those bonds that you're making there are so tight, so fast, and the isolation. So you are building the best friendships of your life and trying to figure out, how do I ruin this person's dream at the same time? And to hold both of those together, your brain starts to make little notes about okay, I want to villainize this person. So it's like, oh, she's a pageant queen, so she must, think she's better than everybody. And she must, and when she, says this, it's nice. You're on high alert to interpret things as negatively as possible. And in our season, we actually caught that early on. I literally remember a conversation where somebody said something personal, and we were like, hey, remember that, I was talking to someone, I was like, hey, remember that all of our brains right now are looking for a reason to villainize others. So they're not a bad person. We just want to believe that so that we don't have to feel bad. And so when I saw that happening, I was like, oh, this sucks because that's why it's happening. And it was so it's like I found myself like having grace for so because we obviously cared about Taylor and I'm really close to her now, and so I was like, man, I know why this happened. It's not because they're bullies as much as it's the groupthink of they're in an environment where everyone's telling them like, hey, like they're all reinforcing that negative thought. And so it was a very interesting experience to watch play out, because it was like, oh wow, like I know why this is happening, and it's so unfortunate. But then it's also unfortunate for all of us to watch it and hop on and be, which you're not doing, but I think we saw the internet do, like tear some of these people's lives apart. Like Monty was second place, and someone at one point had told him like, hey, like Taylor is trying to utilize like the Cookout. She's trying to use the blackness as a strategy in this game without genuine purposes. And so he was like very upset about that when somebody told him that. And so then he had distanced himself from her in a moment. But then it's just like, well, yeah, like that wasn't what she was doing, but he didn't know that. And so everybody, attacked him for not supporting her at one moment. And then later on, they have a relationship, and he does support her because then they build the relationship and all that. And then so it's such an interesting thing for people to hold you accountable for something that's going back to earlier, that's not current. They're just like, hey, like I'm upset at you for I get messages today about like me and Xavier, and they're just like, I can't believe that you did this, whatever. It's like, you guys know me and him are friends, right? Like we're like, you are trying to talk about something that we have moved past. And what I believe has happened in most of these situations is it's really hard to satisfy these people because they're channeling a pain that was caused them by someone else. So they are like, so if they're watching, someone, be disrespectful to Taylor, they're thinking about the person who was disrespectful for them because they were a woman, or because they were black, or because they were a black woman, and they are now putting that on. They're like, oh, like I felt that pain, and so now Monty or whoever it is can't apologize to them because they're not the person who caused it. But so they actually don't want the apology in that scenario, or they don't want my apology because they just want to be upset at me because they're not upset at me, they're upset at someone else. And so that's why else, like, I feel like that also leads me to another positive thing to be on the spectrum is that since I think about all of this all the time, I definitely notice how much less affected I am, because I'm just like, oh, people don't know. Like, people don't know, and they're coming from a situation of ignorance, and they're also coming from a situation of just, and there's also numbers. Like, the negative voices are louder and way more intense than the positive voices, but they're far fewer.
In the house, you mean?
Outside the house.
Oh, outside the house.
For the viewership.
Audience.
Yeah, the audience. Big Brother has the most, like, cutthroat, vitriol audience. Like, the amount of emails and death threats that went to my work, my old job, my sisters and family. Oh, yeah. People get crazy in that game because they're so invested and just unhinged
And they think
for
they
3
know
months.
you.
Yeah, and they think they know. Yeah, they have this relationship, and they're like, I know everything about you because I watched you sleep for 3 months. And it's just like, I mean, you know about me playing this game. That's not me, but it is a parts of me. And so it is, but it's funny because I will sit next to friends that are beloved from that season right after, and I would see them like scroll through 900 comments, and 14 of them are negative, and they'll get stuck on those 14. And it's crazy to see. And I'm just like, wait, but the math is like, why? So I feel so unfazed because of the math. And but I recognize I've just had enough conversations to understand why other people feel personal. And even personal is a trigger word in the show, because Wes is a famous challenger, Wes Bergman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he had a comment recently about how it was on social media, and he was posting about how, everyone wants to say like, hey, it's just a game, but it's not. Like, Monopoly doesn't affect your livelihood, and it doesn't bring in because it doesn't affect your livelihood, and because you're not in this high intensity, high stress, high adrenaline, possibly dangerous situation that has all these other emotions attached to it. it is a game, but to say it's just a game is irresponsible, and it's distancing ourselves. That way we could sit on our high horses and judge people. So that's one thing for sure from playing the games, is that like when I watch anybody in any of the seasons, I'm just like, well, I know I'm not there, and I don't have all of the. One of my, I think Tony Robbins had a line where he said, people often say, if I were you, I'd do this. It's like, well, no, if you were me, you would be me. And this is what me does. And this is how me thinks. Mm-hmm. So like, no, that's not true. But we're quick to say that. It's like, no, if you haven't had my DNA, my experiences, my everything all that leads to that. And yeah, and so that's something, it's crazy.
Kyland, I think you're an incredible young man, and I'm so excited we got to talk. I'm really inspired. I see a lot of great things ahead of you, and we've talked about this too, beyond competition reality series. I know, you're headed back to the challenge at some point, or we don't know?
We don't know. I mean, we can't talk about it yet.
Of course. yeah, but we don't know. We don't know. No, we don't know.
No, we don't know. That's the hope.
Well, because the hope. And by the way, I know a lot of people who are hoping they get that call, but now they have an embarrassment of riches in terms of think of the alumni. How many hundreds of people have been in the challenge?
Yeah.
And we're coming up on the 40th anniversary, which will be a big deal. Are you in touch with everyone from the challenge?
Not everyone. Challenge is, you're definitely creating a lot of bonds, but it's not that same, since it's not that same isolation, and you get calls home.
Okay, so but the question, Kai, do people actually work hard on the bonds outside the show in this downtime in hopes that when they go back to the show, they'll have an alliance?
I think that depends on the people. I feel like...
Do people do that?
I feel like people do that, but that's why reality TV is such an interesting, especially these competitions where it's like not scripted, and we're in competition with each other, is such a blurred space, because you do have I have my certain friendships that I'm like, these are my friends, and like, there's no question
between
us. Who are your
friends? Horatio,
Horacio, Nerys. Like, we are just, family now, and like there's not any thoughts about like, oh, we're, any other ulterior motives. But then everyone else, here's what I would say, is that realistically, there's not ulterior motives with most interactions with most other people. But for some of them, there might be. And to go even further, for some of them, there kind of is. So even if it's just 1% or 0.1%, you don't know which 0.1% that is. So you don't know who you're talking to, what situation, and so it's somewhere in your head, it's like, is this person liking my post or commenting because they want to build a positive relationship with me, or is it real, or did this person, nice to me at this event or whatever because of that? And it's like, most of the time the answer is no, that's not why. But one of those times it might be yes, and you don't know when that is. So it's a very interesting thing to experience in real life, to where you're like, oh wow, like, is this person thinking this way? And like they're probably not, but then who is and who isn't? And so it is.
I don't want to see you get exhausted even thinking about it.
Yeah.
No, I'm seeing
I don't think about it consciously as often, because I very intentionally try not to. I very intentionally like, you know what, I'm not gonna find that. But as far as like future seasons of the challenge, I love the game. It's the coolest, thing I've ever experienced. And I'd love to do more.
We'll see you. I'm sure we're gonna see you again. It's at Kyland Young on Instagram?
Yeah, Kyland Young on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and then Kyland.Young on TikTok, though.
Got it. Got it.
Somebody stole that from you?
I thought I have it, but we cannot recover it, so we're working on it.
Kyland.Young is just fine. All right, we'll be doing, and we're talking about some stuff too, Kai. So what a great interview. Thank you so much. And for everyone from Heel Squad, what does my beautiful wife say? She says, and I have to read this. By the way, this is my brain, my ADD brain, and also meets COVID, meets Lyme disease, meets 80 other afflictions. Make good choices, be nice people, and of course, remember to be present. Did I get that right, Dwayne?
You did.
Did I get that right, Nikkei?
You sure did.
All right, Roxy, did I? I can probably ask you because you knew that, right?
Yeah, you
Maria.
nailed it, Kev.
Rox, thanks for coming and sitting with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Anytime.
A lot of fun. Kai, love you, buddy. More to come.
Love you guys. Thank you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or